What could Nick Fury, Coach Taylor, a WWE monster, one of Atlanta's biggest rappers, and a comedian who actually attended Georgia Tech possibly have in common? They all found their way to the same place, Athens. Georgia football reaches beyond students, alumni, and families wearing red and black. The Bulldogs have built a cultural, gravitational field reaching into Hollywood, country music, television, wrestling, and hip-hop. And some of the names connected to Georgia are far more surprising than you might think. Samuel L. Jackson has lent his unmistakable voice to Georgia football. Quavo has become a familiar presence around the program. Luke Bryan and Jason Aldean carry the Dawgs into country music. Bill Goldberg did not simply cheer for Georgia, he actually fought in the trenches for the Bulldogs before becoming a wrestling superstar. But perhaps the strangest story belongs to a Georgia Tech man who still chose the Dawgs. Today, we reveal 15 famous Americans whose Georgia connection goes far beyond a Saturday tweet. Because if even Georgia Tech could not keep one of its own from becoming a Bulldog, how powerful is the pull of the G? Start with Kane Brown. He has never been subtle about Georgia. In a social media post, the country star wrote, "Put Go Dogs on my headstone." That is not casual fandom. That is identity. Then there's Thomas Rhett, a Georgia supporter living inside a divided college football household. His wife, Lauren Akins, is a Tennessee fan. Southern Living has described Rhett as a Georgia superfan, while Akins remains loyal to the Volunteers. So Georgia-Tennessee is not just a rivalry in their house, it is family business. Megan Moroney turned that rivalry into music. She attended UGA, and her breakthrough hit, Tennessee Orange, told the almost unthinkable story of a Georgia girl wearing Tennessee colors for love. The Associated Press documented how that football-centered song helped launch her national rise. Then come Luke Bryan and Jason Aldean. ESPN has documented both men talking openly about Georgia football. Aldean once described having an entire room in his house dedicated to the Bulldogs. Bryan attended Georgia Southern, but his football loyalty has remained publicly attached to the Dawgs. These performers command arenas across America, but on Saturday, they can still become nervous, loud, irrational members of Dawg Nation. And if you love discovering the stories that make Georgia bigger than the scoreboard, hit like and subscribe because the next names take this connection much deeper. What happens when the celebrity in the stands once wore the same uniform as the players on the field? Bill Goldberg became one of professional wrestling's most intimidating stars. But before the entrance music, the spear, and the jackhammer, Goldberg was hitting people in Athens. According to the University of Georgia, Goldberg was a two-time All-SEC defensive lineman in the late 1980s. He finished his Georgia career with 348 tackles, later reached professional football, and eventually became a wrestling star. Georgia is not simply a team he adopted. Georgia is part of his biography. Omari Hardwick has a similar connection. Millions know him as James Ghost St. Patrick from Power, but UGA alumni identifies Hardwick as a former Georgia football defensive back. Before television knew his face, he had already been inside the program. Iron Singleton followed another remarkable path. Before becoming known through The Walking Dead and film roles, Singleton played football at Georgia. Those stories reveal something important. Sometimes Hollywood did not create a Georgia fan. Georgia helped create the future celebrity. Then there is Josh Holloway, forever remembered as Sawyer from Lost. Holloway spent only a brief period at UGA, but his attachment survived.
In an Atlanta Journal-Constitution interview, when asked about Georgia, he recalled his time in Athens and ended with a simple message: "Go Bulldogs." Kyle Chandler adds another strange layer. For millions of viewers, Chandler is Coach Eric Taylor from Friday Night Lights, one of television's defining football coaches. Yet, away from fictional Texas football, Chandler has very real ties to UGA, and Time reported that he continued following the Georgia Bulldogs even after leaving the university. It is a perfect collision between fiction and reality. The man Americans remember as a Texas football coach was watching Georgia. But even that may not be the most ironic connection here, because one famous Georgia supporter actually went to Georgia Tech.
Jeff Foxworthy should not make sense. He attended Georgia Tech. College football logic says that should have settled his allegiance forever. Instead, Foxworthy became a Georgia fan. He has publicly discussed his Bulldogs loyalty and even joked about being a dog despite his Tech connection. In a rivalry called clean, old-fashioned hate, that is almost football heresy. Then there is Ryan Seacrest. The Georgia native attended UGA and has repeatedly displayed his support for Georgia football, even teaching Kelly Ripa how to call the Dogs on national television. Wayne Knight, Newman from Seinfeld, and Dennis Nedry from Jurassic Park is another UGA alumnus. And when Georgia won another national championship behind Stetson Bennett, Knight publicly congratulated the quarterback with two words every Bulldog understands: "Go Dogs." Then the list reaches another cultural universe: Quavo. UGA itself has described the Atlanta hip-hop rapper as a longtime Georgia Bulldogs fan. He has become a recognizable presence around the program, connecting Atlanta hip-hop culture with Athens football culture. And then comes perhaps the biggest name of all, Samuel L. Jackson. No, he is not a UGA graduate. That makes his connection more interesting. ESPN reported that Jackson narrated Georgia's Commit to the G stadium video and even visited a Bulldogs practice in Athens. Think about that image. One of the most recognizable voices in movie history, connected to Pulp Fiction, Star Wars, and the Marvel Universe, lending that voice to Georgia football. Suddenly, the G feels less like a college logo and more like a cultural symbol. That is the real story behind these 15 names. Georgia's celebrity fans matter because they reveal the size of the world the Bulldogs now occupy. Country music, Hollywood, hip-hop, wrestling, primetime television. Different worlds, same colors, same Saturday obsession, same G. So now I want to hear from you. Which name surprised you the most? Samuel L. Jackson, Quavo, Goldberg, Foxworthy, or somebody else? Drop it in the comments. And if you believe Dawg Nation is bigger than football, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because here we uncover the stories, rivalries, personalities, and secrets that make Georgia different from every other program in America. This is Georgia. This is Dawg Nation. And apparently, even Hollywood knows it. Go Dogs!